And we welcome you to hour number 2 of the Steve Malzberg Show, the Veterans Day edition. Glad you're aboard. And if you want to weigh in, it's 877 Newsmax, 877-639-7629. I don't know how many of you are aware that there's been yet another federal intrusion into your child's education, my child's education. He's in the 8th grade as well. And it's this Common Core curriculum. And joining us now to talk about that is Glyn Wright, Executive Director of the Eagle Forum. Hey, Glyn.
Hey, how are you?
I am well. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. First of all, Eagle Forum, I mean, I guess I could sum it up best by saying that, you're all about education. You're all about stamping out illiteracy. You're all about parents having a say in how their childs are educated and the protection of pupil rights and all that kind of stuff. So that's where you guys are coming from, and I'm glad you're out there. So talk about this core curriculum and what you have seen from it so far. I think it came about. Didn't the Governors Association and the President come together on this and get it into our schools?
Yeah, Eagle Forum has been fighting in the public policy arena across the board for decades. And education is one of our issues, and we've been fighting the progressives for the past 40 years. They've been trying to do this, which will eventually become nationalized education. But you're right, the proponents of the initiative would say that it's state-led, but that's just not true. It was developed by private organizations in D.C., and before this standards were even finalized, the Department of Education had created a program in the 2009 stimulus package called Race to the Top. And they offered the states the opportunity to apply for federal funding, but the states had to promise to implement the Common Core standards. So 45 governors were essentially coerced into adopting the standards, and although only a few of those states were actually awarded the funding, all 45 states are now forced to implement the Common Core.
Yeah, it is incredible. All right, talk a little bit about one example that's making the rounds, and that has to deal with Abraham Lincoln and the Civil War and rewriting sentences, changing words.
Right. We are seeing so many politically charged Common Core aligned assignments just finding their way into the classroom. We've seen everything from 6th graders in Arkansas tasked with rewriting the Bill of Rights because they're supposedly outdated, all the way to sophomores in high school who are supposed to choose from a panel of 10 patients which one's actually worthy of receiving a kidney dialysis.
Wow.
I mean, are they trying to, prepare us to accept death panels from Obamacare? I don't know. It's very alarming. Unfortunately, this liberal propaganda, we've been fighting it for decades. There's one example that I read about the other day from a hearing in the 80s where a parent was describing how in their student's health class they were presented with the lifeboat situation. Too many people are in a sinking lifeboat, and you have to choose who lives and who's not worth saving and who should be thrown overboard so the lifeboat won't sink.
Well, that's back to the death panel thing
right.
again.
No, absolutely. And so that's where, this has been happening for decades. So our main objective right now is to stop what is going to become nationalized education. I mean, they've got these standards, which are already, we're watching drive the testing, which is eventually going to drive the curriculum. It'll require a national database, so there's a whole host of privacy concerns with that will affect not only public schools, but that's going to affect homeschoolers, private schools, and parochial schools. And that is illegal. Nationalized education is completely illegal. And more than that, we know that anything the federal government takes control of isn't done well. No Child Left Behind is leaving children behind. The Affordable Care Act is making health care unaffordable, and the Common Core is going to absolutely destroy the very core of education in America.
Yeah, we're talking to Glyn Wright. She's Executive Director of the Eagle Forum in Washington, D.C. Here on the Steve Malzberg Show, there's one example that I've been hearing about. It's a worksheet called Hold the Flag High, and students are taught about Abraham Lincoln and the Civil War, and in the assignment they have to make examples of sentences less wordy by replacing the underlined word with a possessive noun phrase. They're then given a half a dozen sentences describing the job and the duties of a U.S. president. But for instance, they talk about the president making sure the laws are fair, But, of course, that's not a president's job. That's the judicial branch's job to make sure it's constitutional / fair, whatever you want to call it. Although we do have a president now who you might say, again, this is to prime the pump for what our president is doing, and that's picking and choosing which parts of laws he will enforce, which laws, in fact, he'll enforce at all, because maybe they're not fair in his view. But that's not constitutionally acceptable.
Right, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
All right, but I don't know. So what's what is the path that parents? First of all, parents, I guess, should be looking at assignments. There was one we had on one father who questioned an assignment a child had. I don't know that it was related to the core curriculum necessarily, but then the president of the local school board then told a mutual friend, emailed a mutual friend, and said, "Is this guy a Nazi?" Because he objected to some what he considered to be very biased wording and by the way, he's Jewish, a neo-Nazi they called him. So I mean, what can parents do besides just looking at their kids' assignments and trying to make sure everything is as accurate as possible?
Right. It's been incredible to watch. Eagle Forum's been fighting on the education front for decades, and we haven't seen an uprising like this from the grassroots in a long time. We're watching parents and grandparents and even educators just completely object to what's going on. So start by finding, the opposition, organized opposition in your state, and then demand really right now that your governor stop acting as an administrative agent of the federal government and start leading as the executive of your state by exiting the Common Core, reclaiming your state sovereignty, and thereby restoring power to schools and parents. And then that's the thing. The progressive ideology is that our children are common, that they should conform to these common standards. And I'm sorry, but children are not cogs in a machine of the economic system. They are each individually created by God with a specific purpose, specific talents, and specific abilities that we should be fostering and educating, not standardizing and indoctrinating.
And that's the way it used to be. And I got to tell you, my son's textbook in his school, which I think is Princeton Publishers. Does that ring a bell? Or Princeton, New Jersey, somewhere, something with Princeton. The chapter on Islam is just incredible. It's one of those that says jihad is a good thing, and that Islamic law is good for women, and it's Islamic law is similar to Judaic law. I mean, if I wanted to make a stink, but it's just, I tell my kid, he's savvy, he knows what's going on, and I've talked to him about it. So as long as he knows, but it's just amazing what's out there.
Right, and it's important right now to get out of the Common Core before it's too late, so that we can maintain that control and make sure that we are the ones deciding what our children are learning in the classroom.
Absolutely. All right, listen, good to talk to you, Glyn. Thank you.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Glyn Wright, Executive Director of the Eagle Forum. They do such great work in bringing these issues to light and fighting for the rights of kids and me, the parents of kids, to try to make sure that we know what the heck's going on, what the government's trying to do. And the disappointing thing here, is that this Common Core State Standards Initiative was devised by an association of the nation's governors backed by the Obama administration. Now, most of the nation's governors are Republican. So I don't know if every one of them had a hand in this, but this was in 2009, and the goal is setting a uniform standard for grades K through 12. And again, see, I'm for a uniform standard when it comes to making sure kids could read and write and pass certain tests. See, I hate these. At the same time they claim a uniform standard, these same people who are favoring this will tell you, oh, teachers teach to the test. We got to stop teaching to the test. Well, what do you mean teaching to the test? Haven't you always been taught to the test? You learn something for a week, you get tested on it. At the end of the year, the state test, the standardized tests, whatever, these should be requirements, and teachers should teach to those tests because those are the minimum standards that kids should be able to accomplish before when they leave school. But this infiltration of the political agenda into the little lesson plans, very, very dangerous. So be on the alert. All right, we're coming back, folks. Let's go to the Miami Dolphins. And Richie Incognito gave an interview yesterday. Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV.